Alrighty, everyone. Thanks for joining us. This is our monthly advisor webinar for January. Thanks for joining us after the break here. All right, like usual, we'll get started with just me doing the usual advisor updates. As we're in a webinar format, please submit any questions you have through the Q&A screen, and we will try to answer those as we go. I will go through my slides here, and we'll get our slides posted on this website here soon. So probably before the end of the week. All right, so in advisor news, only a few things to talk about. The main thing going on right now is CRDC, at least for me. So the CRDC collection is open to districts and NDE. However, I'm still working on getting the data prepared to submit school files to the site. So if you are counting on NDE to submit data, please hold off on entering any data until Friday, just so I don't accidentally overwrite anything. If you haven't seen it yet, we did put out a bulletin about this. Maybe not everyone has gotten the email about it though. So in case you're wondering, same message over there. But if you have started entering data, and I already had a couple of people contact me yesterday about this, you can still tell me before tomorrow that you want to opt out if you've already been entering your data in the CRDC site, and I will pull you off the list so that I don't overwrite any of your numbers. Another note about what we've been doing with our CRDC data on NDE side. We've made some corrections to the course, the COUR, basically course related reports to better estimate some numbers. This is, even after doing corrections though, this is a good example of a field that even though NDE can submit data, there's definitely a possibility that districts would need to update it after we've loaded it. Like for example, the two big ones are Algebra 1, like participation and passing or failing for high school and middle school. Those are two different reports. We are using the grades data from Advisor, but we know not every district necessarily submitted grades for their middle schoolers. And as they're asking, I believe, for the percent of students who passed Algebra 1, I think. This is a little tricky for us as there's no state standard for how your letter grading system works. We don't necessarily have a perfect way of knowing how every district is going to list their failing grades, although a lot are similar, so we coded for a lot of the common cases. But just keep in mind that you may have to edit some of the data, even though there'll be data laid out in it by NDE. And of course, it's up to districts to finalize their data in the CRDC website. So NDE won't be finalizing anyone. This kind of brings up something we've been talking about as a possible feature in Advisor. which we haven't even really started to look at yet, but I thought I'd get it on the radar, see if anyone had any comments. This is a request coming out of our accreditation, Rule 10 team. They're thinking of if it's possible to get a standard way of reporting credit earned or instructional units in Advisor. This is something we might look at adding for 22-23. Some of this would probably be done through fields that are already in EdFi that we just haven't asked vendors to use. I think there is probably in the student section data, I think there is a field where you can literally just list like earn credits. As well as there's also ways of collecting minutes for a course in Advisor. That could get a lot trickier, though. I'm not sure we'll be looking into that. Such as, there's a space in Advisor to report actual bell schedules. We could find out the exact minutes on the course, but we're just starting to look at that. So I don't really have much to share about it now. Definitely that is something we will talk about at future district meetings here. Yeah, and good reminder again, that question we just got. If you want to opt out from sending CRDC, just send in a ticket to the help desk and I will get you down on the list. Alrighty, that's all news I had on CRDC. I will be submitting that tomorrow. I have noticed that districts have a few numbers filled in already. Those were actually numbers that CRDC filled in themselves. It was just in a very few places, though. In case you're wondering why, if you go to the CRDC site, some things are not everything's at 0% submitted at this point. All right. Couple of things about 21-22. Obviously, we're at the point of the year where the only due dates are, well, there's CRDC, and I didn't write it here, but I hope everyone's aware that this is roster week for statewide assessments. In this case, the ACT assessment is getting pulled tomorrow, and then we'll be pulling the alternative assessment soon after that, in a couple of days. So I hope everyone's had their data checked on that already. If not, please, look at it today. One thing I want to note is we've had some very late, mid-December corrections from fall data, updating free and reduced lunch numbers so that districts can qualify for E-rate. I think we will really have to lock that down sooner. Definitely don't want to still be correcting fall data into December next year. Also, that'll cause problems for our state aid team. So since the data is supposed to be finished October 31st, I don't think that'll cause a problem, but just wanted to let you know what changes we're making to our process. Question I got from Becky about PEBT. I don't have any news about PEBT. It has been for a while now, going through the approval process with the feds, FNS team, and then it will go through an approval process with the governor here. So it's possible early February, maybe, the PEBT collection will open up again to start collecting data about students that qualify in the 21-22 school year. There will again be some changes to what students qualify again. So there will be communications, meetings, webinars, stuff like that put out by our nutrition services team. So I don't have all the info on that right now, but definitely it will be coming. I can also say that we'll also be hosting the nutrition services team to talk about PBT at our February advisor meeting, so a month from now. Anna asked, has the state pulled digital equity survey data for anything yet? We are continuously pulling it, just for uses in using the data with the study about you know, a replacement for economically disadvantaged. That we just pull that data, whatever we have as we go, and are constantly updating that. We also are pulling the data, and we're providing that data over to the ESUCC, which I believe is from there is probably being distributed to the ESUs. I'm not exactly sure what the ESUs are doing with that digital equity data, but they are getting that report weekly. I don't know of any like hard due date that we have on the calendar for when we expect that data to be completely finished. So I would encourage everyone to send digital equity data as they get it throughout the year. I imagine a lot of you have already received that data. All right, the other things on my 21-22 list here, this of course hasn't changed. It's been here for a while, but you know, we've been backed up with some things. We still want to look into the new exit codes more. And there's still a few course reports that we owe you. So Perkins, programs of study, instructional units, all reports based off of course data that were not things we were using in the fall. So we will be putting those together soon, hopefully in the next month. Also a reminder, this is a good time of the year to start looking at attendance data to make sure you are submitting that. That's really all the updates I have. There's nothing, you know, we're in the slower part of the year, or we should be once we catch up on everything. So that's really all I had today. Does anyone have any questions, anything else they want to talk about today? Yeah, that's a good point. Patty was asking about attendance data and Power School. The Power School team is definitely aware that there is a problem with submitting attendance data from Power School. It is the number one or two issue after that, and CRDC are really the top issues. So yes, I know Power School is aware of that problem. They should be working on a fix soon. I don't have the date from Power School when that was supposed to go out yet. I really do hope it's in the next couple of weeks though. But yeah, we'll keep a lookout for the notifications about the new Power School state reporting updates. Mandy asked about the slides. Yeah, we will post the slides. We just don't have them yet. We usually post them on the data conference website here. We'll post them at the top of the January meeting here. So But yeah, we'll get those posted within the next couple of days. Stacy asked about digital equity in PowerSchool. I have not heard of any issues with that. Definitely would recommend you contact your PowerSchool support and get that ball rolling with tracking that down. I do not know if that is a PowerSchool bug or just an issue at your district. So if the sooner you can get either your support or PowerSchool corporate support looking at that, the better. Alrighty. I'm not seeing any more questions. But so we'll take a little quick break here. We should start up at 10 o'clock with
right.
with Jolene, I believe, who will be here to talk about Safe2Help.
So good morning, everybody. Welcome and thank you for joining us for just a snippet of the Safe2Help Nebraska data presentation for this virtual data conference. We appreciate you spending a few minutes with us today to learn a little bit more about our venture with Safe2Help Nebraska. My name is Jolene Palmer, and I want to share with you that Diana Schmidt from Boys Town, which is the Safe2Help manager, will also be a part of this presentation because Safe2Help Nebraska is a partnership between the Department of Education and Boys Town. And as we go forward, we will be working together in many ventures regarding Safe2Help. And so it's exciting that we can have you get to be introduced to Diana because she is an integral part of this whole process. Let me tell you, Safe2Help Nebraska is an anonymous report line where students, staff, or parents can report any type of concerning behavior that they see or they hear about that could impact the safety of students, staff, and schools. And what we like to say is that Safe2Help is a way that we can give a voice to the voiceless, because what we know is in the majority of situations, there's always leakage of information about some kind of a concerning behavior or some kind of activity that could hurt people, especially within the school. And we want to give an opportunity for someone to report that ahead of time so that we can know about it and maybe be able to intervene so we can keep students, staff, and property safe. It is a venture that began about almost 2 years ago. Well, it was January 7th of 2019, no, 2020, January 7th of 2020. Boys Town and some schools in the Omaha metro area went live with the Safe2Help as a pilot program for us. And what happened then is, you may or may not know, we went to the legislature last legislative session and asked for this to become part of legislation for schools to be able to be a part of this process if they choose to be. So that we can give an opportunity for students and staff to have a place to contact if they hear something that's being planned or hear concerning threats that might be to someone or to property of some kind. And so we know that in that pilot, there were many reports made, about 450 to be exact, in about a year, that really, I would tell you, I think it saved lives. We had 78 reports of threats of suicide. And so I also say, I think that is one way we can help support schools in their mental health. And so I just want to share with you, and we, Diana and I, want to share with you some of the specifics and some of the data that we captured over the past year. So a few of the specifics, oh, no, not yet. A couple of the concerning behaviors, and I want Diana to address these over the past, in the year 2021, what we saw as event types, what kinds of things we saw in Nebraska.
So if you take a look at the event types from last year, they have bullying and suicide threats as number 1 and number 2, but those two actually went back and forth throughout the year. So they really dominated, some of the overall themes, but we have over 30 event types for a student or faculty member to choose from when they are submitting their tip. It's a pre-established drop-down menu, and then they pick one of the event types that best fits what they're trying to report. Every now and then we need to change and update the event type, but this is a very accurate picture of what the incident was or the information they had, and the school can tell, what they're dealing with. And you can tell by number 1 being bullying and number 2 being threats for the overall year that those are some serious issues that are being dealt with. And, some life-threatening with the suicide. Drugs are number 3. They have a lot of information about their peers, that might be vaping in the bathroom. Going down, harassment was up there, along with self-harm and depression. And then the suicide threats, school threats, we had 20 of those. And they know that concerning behavior, might start out as something that isn't as serious, but then it might elevate. So accurately knowing what someone is talking to us about is a very quick way to tell what the schools are dealing with. And you can see there's school fights in there. There's child abuse. That's another one that is, pretty high up and, very serious for us to deal with right away with the schools. Then we have threats of violence and planned school attacks. So those top 15 event types tell us that, we are getting at the heart of some concerning behavior that the schools need to know about.
And I would just add in there about the child abuse. If a staff member contacts the report line reference abuse that they know is happening, they still, as a mandatory reporter, need to contact DHHS or law enforcement. Calling this report line is not satisfying their mandatory report requirement, but it is what we would tell you is it is a way to get a student help maybe a lot faster than what it might be to call the law enforcement or call DHHS. So we want to talk just a little bit about some of the specifics that drive the data and how, what you just saw, how that happens, because we need a process. And so a couple things I would just tell you is this report line is responded to every day or every hour of every day of every year. 24/7, 365. There is a live person that is sitting, as you can see, this is an actual one of the actual crisis counselors taken last week, working in Safe2Help P3 system, helping a school. I would just tell you that having a live person gives the immediate response, which is critical, because if somebody's going to report, we want them to understand that there is something happening with that report. And so it is an interactive opportunity. And as we look at it, one of the main pieces of that interaction is dialogue. And so as you look at the data for dialogue, being able to dialogue back and forth, I'll let Diana share a little bit about what that looks like for her or for the crisis counselors.
So when a student or faculty member or somebody in the community reports information online, so it's coming through the web or the app, we have the ability to interact with them through the dialogue features. Our P3 campus software has a lot of features, and one of the really great features is the ability to instantly reach out and see if they're there and if they want to talk to us and if they want to give us more information. So we tracked the data that of the people who submitted online tips, 36% of them last year spoke with us. So they responded to our outreach, and that's really helpful because we can ask more questions. It's a real skill not to overload them with questions, but to ask open-ended questions. How did you come to find out about this information? And to see if we can draw some more out of them to help the schools have more, because often it might be missing a piece that they can quickly add, whether it's a last name or a time of day. So they are submitting it like it's a form, but it's really not. It's alive because of that person on the other end of the phone that's trained to talk to them in a compassionate way that's going to de-escalate any crisis that they present to us. And so working with the hotline and having that crisis counselor is a very unique feature of a tip line. And we kept this data point on our own because we thought that was good to know, that 36% of them are going to talk to us. And maybe we work to increase that number, but knowing that number is important to share with the schools. And sometimes they're going to share with us, and sometimes they might just want to give the information and then that's it.
And another major feature that I think is critical is that of the capability to upload an image. Would you like to speak to that, Diana?
Yeah, so among the features like dialogue that are really state of the art for our platform is that at the moment they submit the tip, they can upload the image. Or if we're talking to them on the phone, we can give them their code and they can upload the image, and it's part of that tip report. And that really helps with the investigation. Sometimes we have screenshots of dialogue from social media posts, or in the case of suicide event types, they might have the image of somebody saying that they're struggling and maybe having those thoughts. And it might be very direct, or it might just be a version of that. I'm just worried about them because they said this. We might have pictures of weapons or again, threats to the school. So those images are becoming part of our landscape as well. And that ability to have those as part of that tip report has been really helpful over the last couple of years.
And what's really important to note, going off of what Diana just talked about with the dialogue back and forth and the capability to upload, is it remains an anonymous line. Once they make a report, there is a random number or code that's assigned to them. We don't know who that is. They're just referred to as number 63294, or whatever it might be. We still don't know who that is. The only way that a student becomes unanonymous is if they tell somebody that they reported. Otherwise, they will remain anonymous to infinity. So that's a key piece that I really want students and staff and schools to understand, is this is a way they can report that scary information and yet not be found out as to who it was that made that report. Because we know that is a barrier, is that they're afraid that there will be retaliation or something if they report information. So nobody knows, and that's a good thing. Another piece that's critical from what the data shows us nationally for report lines is that it needs to be multimodal. There needs to be a way that students have the opportunity to make those reports in various ways. And so we have that. And I'll let Diana share what we're finding.
Yes, it's been interesting to see how the students and faculty and community reach us, because we can tell by their submission. There's the first way is a phone call, and maybe that's the old fashioned way, but some people really prefer, to pick up the phone. No problem. That is a great opportunity to speak with somebody. And then we're going to be able to have a back and forth dialogue very easily. 18% of the reports that we took last year, those reporters came to us with phone calls. And then the rest were online. So they broke down 17% of them were through the specifically branded Safe2Help Nebraska app that you can get in the App Store. Some schools, had their students just download the app if that was appropriate. But the other one is the website. They came at 65%. And we actually can even tell if they use their phone to reach us on the web. They use the URL Safe2Help Nebraska website, but maybe they just use their phone to do that. So absolutely, a lot of people are using their phone, but sometimes it's through the app. And most of the time right now, it is through the website. But that very interesting data point. And for us to know that right away, we can tell there's some technical features if they are, using the app versus the website. Has to do with the dialogue and the way we push that out. But that knowledge is power for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. So you may ask, what happens when someone makes a report? Where does that information go? Well, honestly, there's two things that happen. First of all, the crisis counselors that take that information in, they determine whether it is a life safety issue or if it's not, because immediately, if it is a life safety issue, they contact 911 in your area and dispatch somebody to get an intervention happening. If a student calls from a party and says Michelle is on the bridge and is going to jump off, she says she's going to kill herself. Well, we need to get people there immediately. And so the crisis counselors are the ones that actually get that happening. But the other thing then that happens with that particular life safety call is they contact the school team, the threat assessment team members, because we know that sometimes they will have information that the emergency responders may need. And so we give that information to the school at the very same time, basically, as the 911 gets it, so that we can get an intervention. So that's one way. The second thing is, if it's not a life safety issue, then all of that information goes back to the school. And really, it's data that goes back to the school threat assessment team. And the threat assessment team then goes through the process that they have learned as to determine what they need to do with any particular report and threat, so that we can keep students safe and find the supports that need to happen to keep them safe. And so I want you to understand that is not NDE's information. In fact, NDE does not have access to that information. That is information that is specifically between Boys Town as the crisis counselors and your school threat assessment. That is a key piece. That is your data. That's very important. I also want to show you the breakdown, and Diana, you can share what you guys are finding as far as who's reporting and how that's working.
Yes, the breakdown, this comes to us when the tip reporter does submit the tip. They have to pick a school. So when they pick their school, we can identify, if it's an elementary, high school, or middle school. So you can see that middle school at 54% is currently our most active in terms of tip submissions, tip reports, but high school students at 38% and elementary at 8%. Sometimes that's a teacher at a school that maybe is submitting something, because a lot of marketing is that a young person would tell a trusted adult. But we can tell the school that it's coming from. We can't necessarily tell, and this may answer the question, we can't tell if it is at a high school and middle school level, for example, who it is. Is it a student or a parent, except from the narrative and the dialogue and the way that they write it. I heard my friend say this. my student said this, if the way that they write the narrative, but we can break down absolutely the type of school. And we know that right now, 54% or over half of our tip reports are coming from middle schools.
They're active.
Imagine
Amazing.
that.
Imagine that for middle schoolers. And I just want to reiterate that the data that comes from all of these reports are the school's data. And the nice piece is then you from your schools can actually run reports specific to your school based on the data that is received from all of these reports. So currently, we're not running just a huge number of reports. I think the last number I heard Diana talk about was we were averaging about 60 a month. But when you really think about that, 60 a month gives us an opportunity to make getting interventions to provide supports to students. And that's a critical piece. One of the things that we strive and continually look for as far as why we wanted part of this to be a part of Nebraska is to help free up law enforcement some, so that we were not continually involving those in law enforcement in situations that may or may not need to have their involvement. So this gives us an opportunity to kind of direct and guide some of those reports of what they do and where they go and what happens. But one piece of data that I think is critical to be able to share is about suicide threats.
So what we learned early on when we were trying to identify why it helps to have a crisis counselor at the point of contact and collaborating with the schools was because we didn't necessarily, the schools wanted us to help with the expertise of helping with high risk reports. So suicide threats, or if a self-injury is, maybe life-threatening. But of the tips that we took last year that dealt with high risk and the need to determine if there was an immediate safety concern, we were able to 86% of the time collaborate with the school and handle those without sending an officer for a check for well-being. So we absolutely will do a check for well-being when it's necessary and it's a known high risk and we can't reach a trusted adult. But that was 8 times last year versus 57 times that we worked with the school, collaborated on how to best determine the well-being of the student in that moment. So this data point we kept on our own. It didn't come from the system. We just needed to know, when, and it became helpful because it shows that, we're not trying to send law enforcement and overshoot our response. What we're trying to do is get the immediate best care to the person in need if they're in need. So that was, it's a simple number, but boy, does it tell a story.
It sure does tell a story. So as we look at kind of why your school might want to participate, again, this is a legislative bill from last year that passed through the legislature to give this as an option to all schools at no cost. And that is a critical piece that I want you to understand is there is no cost to your school to be a part of Safe2Help. So that is a benefit, but it's also one of those things where we can get information and data to help keep your students and your staff safe in your school. If someone is planning something, if somebody brought a weapon to school, if somebody is threatening to die by suicide, other students can share that information through the report line and we can get some interventions to help support those students so nothing of the unthinkable happens. And that's really a goal of what we want to accomplish. And I would tell you, it's all local control based. The only thing that's not local control is the information coming in. And what we have found, our students and even staff are more likely to report to an anonymous line than to a website or something where they might be found out as to who they are. And so the only thing that we do is to take the reports, and then all of that information comes right back to your threat assessment team. So it's your information for your threat assessment team to do the investigation, and to do observations and get all the information to gather that, to determine what supports need to be put into place for any particular student. And then it's up to the threat assessment team to do the follow-up. So what needs to happen next? So is it that we need to involve the parents? Of course, by law, it says that the principal of a school, when a threat comes in at a reasonable time, will include parents. And that is one of those things that I would tell you there's a time and a place when that needs to happen. But if it's at a detriment or at the non-safety of a student, then we would tell you that a parent should not be contacted until we know all the information to know that that parent is not one of the perpetrators or something like that. I can give you lots of examples of what's happened in that situation where parents were contacted right away, and then all of a sudden activity stopped. Well, that's because the parent knew that somebody was now looking at them because somebody had made a report. So it's important to realize that it is a requirement by law that a principal or an administrator shares information with parents of the child involved, not necessarily the entire student body, but of the child involved, and do that follow-up. And then again, I just want you to know that it's your district or school's data. It's not NDE's, already said that, but I want you to understand, I do not have access, and I have specifically chosen that because I want that to be between you as a school and Boys Town. I get reports that are just very general, not about any specific school district, just overall what's happening with the line, but specific information to your school is your data. And as we said earlier, the life safety reports, one of the benefits is that when a student or a staff make a call and there's a life safety report, that is dispatched immediately to law enforcement, and the report line crisis counselors do all that coordination. And then if and when it's appropriate for schools to be brought into that, I mean, it's usually sooner than later because they'll report that Michelle's on the bridge going to jump off, and they didn't say the Michelle who it was, and so then it's more likely for the crisis counselor to call the school to say what Michelles are in your school. This is our report. So it gives that information to your threat assessment team again. And then the nice thing is then you also have your own data that's specific to your school and what kinds of concerning behaviors have been happening. And so it gives you a chance to determine what kinds of supports to put in place for students as well. If there's a lot of kids that are students that are calling in and reporting that their friend is self-harming or whatever, and you now have 6 reports in the last week, that's something that you would look at and say, okay, what do we want to do to address this, to provide supports? Maybe there was a suicide and there's other reports about contagion. Well, you would want to know that, and that data then is very specific to your school. So there's probably many more benefits than just these, but I would just tell you, just having the information and the data is knowledge for you and your school district to keep your students and staff safe, and that is a critical piece. So as we close, and I just kind of want to share all of what we're doing with this report line is to address the 81.9%. And that 81.9% is this: in all incidents involving a school, 81.9% of the time, someone knew something about what was going to happen. Wouldn't you want to know what was going to happen? And so it gives us a chance to get ahead of what's going to happen and try to make sure that nothing happens. That's our goal. And giving a voice to the voiceless is the opportunity to let someone take that information they have seen or heard about and share it so that we can do something about it. We're looking for schools. We're looking for schools and wanting schools to participate. If your school would be interested in more information, we have a couple documents for you that will be shared so that you can learn more. There's a frequently asked questions, and it tells you how to have your school sign up. If you want more information, you can share or have us contact you and share more information. So we appreciate the opportunity. I just ask you, are you and what are you doing for the 81.9%?
Hi, Jolene. Somebody
Yes, thanks,
just
Brian.
asked, what was the name of the law that was passed?
It was LB 322, and it has now become part of the school safety 79 to 144, 145, 146. It's become part of that law. It was passed last May.
Great, thank you.
Mhm.
I got a question too.
Sure.
Is this program applicable to other entities than just public schools?
We are supporting both public and non-public schools. So yes.
Right.
Does that answer what you were hoping?
Yep, that's
Yeah, we
what I was
are
wondering.
supporting both public and non-public schools. And it's free to both.
Although we probably have probably all public schools here today, but
Yes.
good to know.
And it is, and like I say, it is free. There is no cost to the school to be a part of this. Please feel free at any time to reach out, to ask your questions. I'll be more than happy to provide whatever information we can. We're trying to grow this, and we're trying to grow it quicker, faster, sooner than later, because we need to give a report to the legislature in January. So 2 years from now, January of 2024. And then our hope is that the legislature would continue to fully fund it based on the data that we get. And the more data we have, the more we can show that it is an effective process to help schools get data to help them do decision-making around safety at their school.
Another question just came in. Do schools need to be enrolled in order to use it?
Yes, you will need to opt in.
And they took the bell.
And on the frequently asked questions, if you'll look at that, it will tell you how to enroll. All you basically do is call, or not call, you send me an email, jolene.palmer@nebraska.gov, and say, my school, St. John's, whatever, in Timbuktu would like to participate in Safe2Help, and we'll get you rolling.
Then one more that just came in. Is it a law that schools must offer this reporting?
No,
I assume
this is an
that's what
opt-in. This is opt-in because we know there are schools that already have reporting systems. This was not to supersede that. We would tell you it would be a nice augmentation, but it's not something every school has to do because you may already have something that's working for you. But I would tell you, you ask yourself or ask your school, is this report line looked at and monitored 24/7, 365? Because what we know is most reports come in at 9 o'clock on Friday night. And so because of that, and that's data that is important for you to know. If you have a report line and you don't have somebody watching all of those reports during the weekend, and it was a report that their friend was going to die by suicide on Saturday night, and you don't look at it until Monday morning, chances are the unthinkable happened and it's too late. So one thing to ask is, do we monitor 24/7, 365? Are there multiple ways that kids and students can report? And is it an anonymous report line so that they feel comfortable that there's not going to be retaliation if they report that the social studies teacher or the science teacher is providing drugs to students? It's really important of those three aspects that your report line that you have would have that. If it doesn't, then I would tell you, you might consider augmenting with Safe2Help, but it is an opt-in system. You have to tell us that you want to be a part of it. So it's not mandatory.
All right, I don't see any.
Your district, great data. There's a ton of data that comes with it. So it's very helpful. We appreciate the opportunity. Thank you.
So just to update everybody on what 2022 is going to look like for us, we decided to continue with our monthly webinar idea. We think it has some real merit and some real legs, and it's been really kind of exciting to see what monthly topics come up. Just listening to Jolene and Diana, that was really interesting. And it was something that I don't get to hear about in my day-to-day. So it was a really interesting topic. So we hope to continue on that effort of introducing new and exciting endeavors happening at the NDE that are impactful for our districts and schools and systems. So the website is still maintained, and it will be updated frequently. The second Wednesday of every month for the year 2022 is going to be our webinar. So yeah, thanks Max for scrolling down. You can see we have them scheduled out for the rest of the year. Registration is required for each month. That's how you'll get your Zoom link. And then we'll send a bulletin every month when the registration is open. So we mentioned February's webinar, and that's going to have we're going to have a couple guest speakers, but once that registration is open, we'll send a bulletin and let you know so you can get right in and get registered for it. So our tentative agenda for February, we've got the nutrition services team, Jenna, Katie, and Zainab, joining us to talk about PEBT. I know there was a question earlier about it. And then we're going to have our accreditation team join us, Mickey Scharf and then Todd Wolverton. He's not here on the agenda. They're going to talk about the non-public curriculum collection. So this is a really interesting opportunity for the non-public schools to join in on our webinars and have something specifically geared towards them. And I do think for the public districts as well, it'll be interesting for you guys to kind of see what non-publics do to submit their curriculum and their course data. It's a different process, but it's pretty darn similar to what you guys are doing as well. So that's February's. March, we have the accreditation team back. I don't think the agenda is online there. Yeah. They're going to talk about the counselor and library media specialist collection that's specific to their group. And then we'll look to maybe have another topic. So always open to ideas. If there's something you guys really want to hear about, it sounds like the PEBT is a great timing since someone had a question about it earlier. But if there's something specific that you'd love to hear about or have another group at the NDE present on, please let us know. You can always send a ticket into advisorhelp@nebraskacloud.org if you want. But otherwise, reach out to any of us and we're happy to get that discussed and on the agenda. So that's really all I have. More coming soon. So thanks everybody for attending today. I don't know if there's any other questions for us.
Just remind everyone that hopefully, probably within the next few days, we'll get the slides and a recording posted on the data conference website.
Yeah, thanks, Max. That's a good point. I'll try to make sure that registration for February is open and also everything, the recordings up when we send that bulletin announcement for February, so that we'll include both of those things in there.